Welcome. Bruchim Abbaim. I'm Rabbi Paul, your virtual rabbi, and you have found Beit Virtuali. One of my favorite exercises that I ever had the opportunity to do with bar and bat mitzvah students was to divide them into three groups. And one group was Harry Potter, one group was Star Trek, one group was Star Wars, and they were to research and come back and present and debate with everyone else on what were the values, morals, and ethics of that particular universe. And then after that was presented, then we would debate and come to some sort of consensus within the class on which of those values, morals, and ethics most overlapped Jewish values, morals, and ethics. And hopefully it's quite obvious that in order to be able to do that, one has to have a grasp on what the difference between values, morals, and ethics are. And one of the reasons that I wanted to teach that to groups of 11, 12, and 13-year-olds was these are words that we use every day, throw them around, and even judge ourselves and others by values, morals, and ethics. And if we don't have a strong grasp on them, that can get pretty dangerous when we are in the act of judgment or discernment. So here's a really quick self-evaluation for if this video is necessary. Do you have a strong definition right now for value, moral, ethic? If I were to say my values or my group's values or my nation's values or religion's values are greater than that of another group, if I were to say that that was immoral behavior, or I am morally superior, or they are morally superior, or that was ethical or unethical, do I actually know what I've said? Am I able to actually look at myself in the mirror and say, this is exactly what I mean? And do we know where that comes from? In other words, do we have our own knowledge and voice and something that we use on an everyday basis on how we judge actions, judge behavior, judge thoughts, judge beliefs? And just from a personal standpoint, I don't think that I even encountered any good debate on any of this until I was at university and literally took classes in morals and ethics in the philosophy department. So if you're in a philosophy department and you don't like my definitions, comments down below, we can debate this. I'm going to go ahead and use a bit of a pastiche in my definitions, but if you want to know where some of these ideas come from, I'll mention some in the video, but I'm more than happy to go deeper into anything that you want me to go deeper into. And what do we get out of this? Well, number one, words do have meaning. Like it or not, our desire to use words in the way that's emotionally comfortable for us can be contradictory to established meaning, and the issue about that is not forcing some hierarchical notion on the world. It's actually allowing us to communicate with each other. If I say that's immoral and your idea of what morality is has nothing to do with what I just said, we're not talking. We have no basis of debate. We have no basis of ever coming to understanding each other. So let's just jump right in with values. Usually the definitions of values are going to have something to do with the degree of importance of something regarding how we are to live. But the very word itself, value, and how we use it in mathematics, for example, actually should give us a hint of what value really is. It's an ordering. It's something quantifiable. It's a level. It's a degree. This is more important than that. And with each of these definitions, one of the things that I want us to think of is what the implications are personally based on our tribal identity and based on something at a larger level like national or international. There's a fourth level. That fourth level is deity, but that's literally a discussion on theology, which is a little bit outside of the purview of this particular video. But I have individual values, and then each of the various different groups or tribes to which I belong have their values. And of course, at a larger level, there are national or even world values. And oftentimes those three different levels are in conflict with each other, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes there are things that cross each of those boundaries. The key words that I want us to think of when we think of values are integrity and congruency. And this is actually kind of cool, and I actually did a sermon on this channel about a month and a half ago. But if values are a quantifiable sort of thing, then we should be able to order them and then find out if we are being congruent with our values. So the example that I try to use all the time is list your values. Actually do this, write it down. The most important thing to me is, and we're going to leave work aside for a second because that one's really complicated in this exercise. And if most of my time is going to how much I work, that might be tied into other values like supporting for my family and that sort of thing. So this is really, if you remove sleep time and you remove work time, what are the things that I say say are the most important to me? What are my values? And then the exercise is, over the course of a day, write down where we actually spend our time. And what we tend to find out is if we say the most important thing to me is family, on our list of what our actual values are, thumbing through our Facebook feed, followed by thumbing through our Instagram feed, followed by a distant third thumbing through our Twitter feed. And I think you get the idea of where I'm going here. I'm not trying to be too cute or sarcastic about it. This is actually one of the reasons that we have anxiety. If I say that family is the most important thing, or fill in the blank on what was at the top of your list, if I say that that is the most important thing to me and I don't do it, I'm going to have anxiety. I'm going to have stress. It's what I'm going to need to try to be in discussion with my pastor, my rabbi, my therapist, my counselor. And that's this congruency aspect. Integrity means what I say I am to the world is actually how I present myself, even when no one can see what I'm doing. In other words, if I say I value all human beings, and yet I have no problem on Facebook telling someone that I don't have a problem if they die, a sort of dialogue I've seen over and over again, getting worse more recently on social media, I'm not congruent with my values. It's funny, the origin of all this is probably survival. When we look at values, a lot of this has to do with what did we need to do at a certain time in order to make sure that I and the tribe could survive. Is what I'm saying is valuable to me and what I'm actually doing helping myself to survive, to live a better life, to live a life of meaning? Is it helping my tribe? And then if my values are lining up with my tribe's, is that actually helping the world? Because at a spiritual level, we're interconnected, and at a real level, we're interconnected. And so how we actually behave, it matters. So that moves us on to morals, and I'm going to start off with morals and ethics because part of the confusion between morals and ethics, and I've read works by incredibly important thinkers who do not consistently use these words. And the dictionary definition, one of the primary dictionary definitions of both of them, is correct action. Morals are correct action and ethics are correct action. So what's the difference between the two of them? And again, why does it matter? And the key words I want to give in order to help us tackle this is morality is local and ethics is universal. So I admit when it comes to ethics, I'm deeply influenced by Immanuel Kant, by Moses Mendelssohn, and when it comes to morals, well, I'm incredibly influenced by the person who I think really helped us understand the flexibility and the motion and evolution of morals over time. That's Friedrich Nietzsche. And yes, highly problematic person. And here I am, a rabbi who's saying Nietzsche's important. But the book Beyond Good and Evil actually traces how morals change over time. And to really terribly simplify something, what Nietzsche does in Beyond Good and Evil is to take the morality of the Roman times, actually the values of Romans, and then turn that into a moral statement. So how does that happen? Well, if I were to say it is valuable to me to be strong, to be a conqueror, to be a warrior, then the morality associated with that is, if I am that, then I am good, or I am just, or I am righteous within a society. And the mapping that Nietzsche did was to show that in the Roman Empire, the values and then the morality that was reflected from those values was completely turned around once Christianity became the dominant force within what used to be the Roman Empire. So, for example, we move from you must be strong, you must protect, to the Beatitudes, the meek shall inherit the earth. And when we get to a certain point in that dialogue and the societal change, that which was good in Roman times became evil in Christian times, and that which was bad, to be meek, in Roman times then became, well, good or enlightened or righteous. Maybe in the year 2021, as I'm recording this video, the better way or the easier way to understand this is to look at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, just in the last couple generations, the difference of how society in general in the West dealt with homosexuality versus how that is dealt with today, where we have in almost every Western country some level of legal acknowledgement, unthinkable even 10 years ago, certainly 50 years ago, beyond belief. Statements 50 years ago would have been very clear on what society felt was moral and immoral. And today to come out and say, oh, I don't believe that everyone should have the right to love who they want to love, that would be a statement of pure immorality. And so the key word here is awareness. If morality is mutable, if it is local, if it's changeable, and we are saying it's universal, this is right and this is wrong, and you are a bad person if you do not accept the same morality that I have. There's a danger to that, because that morality shifts over time. One of the big complaints against Jewish scripture that I see over and over again is, what an immoral religion. Look, it should have just condemned slavery, and instead it just says, here are the rules of how to deal with slavery. I can't believe that book is so immoral. Which tells me that whoever says it, I'm looking at you, Richard Dawkins, has no idea what the Torah actually is and how it's changed over time. Because the second that I jump in with a morality from 2021 and judge people in a time that was so radically different in what was necessary to survive, and the society that gave rise to these ideas and the necessities of the time, if I judge them based on my morality, I've missed the point entirely. The beautiful thing here is to actually look at how morality has changed and why, and usually it changes via our last point, which is ethics. And so yes, once again, ethics means correct behavior, but this is correct behavior at a universal level. So this gets a little bit tricky, because how can I say that I know what is universal? Well, if you take a Venn diagram of values, morals, and ethics, there is overlap. It's one of the reasons it's a little bit confusing. We can have things that are of value that are also a part of our morality, that are also an ethical statement, and the most universal one, and I love the Jewish phrasing of it because I think it holds up a little bit under scrutiny, and that is from Hillel, that which is reprehensible to you, do not do to another. Well, treating another the way that we would want to be treated, or not doing something to someone else that we would not want done to us, well, that is absolutely a value, and it's a value since it's stated so early in Jewish tradition. It is a value that goes way back, but there's a morality that comes from it. The person in society who follows that is a good or bad person, and then finally, I can will that to be universal, which is why ethics are so important. This is our ability to rationally judge our morality. So let me step on a soapbox for a second, because I'm a rabbi and I'm dealing within religion, and my religion is a religion that for the last 2,000 years has not said my religion is right and yours is wrong. At one point in the past, it probably was the case, but we haven't converted anyone by the sword in at least 2,200 years, so I feel that I'm on a strong moral ground with this statement. But part of how easy it is to get morals and ethics messed up is when we try to universalize something that is not universalizable. What does that mean? If you come to my door and say, I am going to a bad place because I do not believe as you do, oftentimes that is justified by saying, hey, listen, I'm just doing the moral thing of saving your soul. I'm worried about you. This is for you. It's not for me. I'm sorry that this sounds hurtful, but I'm just doing the just thing. Okay, fine. That's a strong statement of morality. Now, do you want someone coming to your house and telling you that you are wrong and you are going to hell because of how you believe? And the answer is, of course, no. There it is. You're dividing line between morals and ethics. From an ethical standpoint, if you would not want to universalize that behavior, then don't do it to someone else. Why is all this important? Well, it should be obvious, and this is a theme of this channel over and over again. We are not consistent and congruent in how we present ourselves to the world. If we preach peace and love and togetherness and equality, but yet we go and we tear someone apart through our words, through an anonymous comment on social media, we're not living a life of integrity with our values. Our morality is suspect, and we have no regard for, well, the universality of our actions. In other words, it's okay for me to do it, but not you, means we have no ability to understand what ethics are. Back to the idea that words have power, that they have meaning. I love when questions are asked like, before we had the words subconscious and unconscious, how did we relate to those aspects of our consciousness? And the answer is with not quite as much depth as we have now, that we've got better concepts. The reason I taught youth this was to empower them. I used to place this module right next to a module on learning about logical fallacies, false dichotomy and cliff and all those other fun things, so that when someone would come up to them and say, well, you can do either A or B, that they had the power to say, that's a dichotomy and a false one, I'm going to choose C. Well, it's the same thing with values, morals, and ethics. If someone says, you are immoral, this is a tool to be able to say, hold on a second here. Let's actually, first of all, define our terms, and second of all, let's actually place ourselves on the same level so that we can debate. What this all boils down to is, why are we falling apart? It's because we are not in dialogue with each other. For us within Judaism, I think one of the most powerful values within Judaism is dialogue, the dialogic process. We are Bnei Yisrael. We are the children of the one who wrestles with God. We praise Abraham for arguing with God about Sodom and Gomorrah. How often have we as individuals in the last, it's really the last few years that it's gotten so bad, said, you're not allowed to debate with me on that issue. We step out of Judaism when we lose that value, partially because saying, I must be right and you must be wrong, is actually immoral to Jewish values. And it certainly is not something I can universalize, because I don't want you to say to me, I have no right to say what I'm saying. So yeah, a little bit out of the usual fare for Beit Virtuali. This is a question that arose from a dear human being who is in our current online course. This is almost the end of the current online course that I'm doing. So if you have things that you want to learn and be involved in interactive education, first of all, become a member of Beit Virtuali, link right down below. Members get to suggest adult education, and it is one of the most exciting things that we do. Other than that, it really helps this channel if you like this video, if you subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't. I've got my diagnostic tools. I know that 1 out of every 2 people who watch these videos is not subscribed. So I'm talking to you. Subscribe to this channel right now. And in the meantime, hopefully it's obvious that one of the primary values of this channel is that we really should be lifting each other up and not tearing each other down. The morality and the ethics are the questions of how we do that. What's the right behavior? The starting point is awareness of what we're actually doing based on what we say we do. And so let's be aware of how it is we lift someone else up today. In the process of doing that, we are all lifted up. Thank you for being a part of Beit Virtuali. We'll see you next time. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים, משפטים אותנו לימדת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים, משפטים